There's a conversation that happens inside medical and law school admissions offices that most applicants never hear. It happens in committee rooms and in the margins of application files. It's the little moment a dean closes a folder and decides, I spent over 15 years in that room. This is Grad Missions Office Hours. I'm Autumn Rains-Lockett, and every week my team and I bring that conversation out into the open because the process was never meant to be a mystery, and your future is too important for guesswork. Let's get to work. Hi, all. Thanks for joining us this week for Grad Missions Office Hours. We are actually opening up the pod loft to our law and med friends today, so everyone is welcome. I know most of you pick through our episodes and look for either law or med, but today you can all join hands and sing Kumbaya as we dig into what to do if you're not the perfect applicant.
I think one of the things a lot of our students that we work with, they come to us because they aren't the perfect applicant and they want to know how to make their application look perfect. And that means they may be a non-traditional student or they may be a splitter. And so I think today we're talking to those folks to just let you know, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's
Law
not
schools
just
and
the numbers.
no. Law schools and med schools are filled with people who had a blemish, something on their application that they were trying to solve for, or a couple of things that maybe didn't provide the perfect roadmap. You know, we have spent many episodes in the past few months talking about how to build the perfect on-ramp, talking to freshmen, talking to sophomore or non-traditional folks who are a couple of years out from applying about how to kind of build that perfect platform. Some of you may be sitting here right now thinking, I'm ready to apply. I've got basically what I need together, but it doesn't look perfect and there's not much I can do about, right? Like if you have a lower GPA, you can't repeat undergrad. That's not going to help.
Yeah.
If you have been out of school for a while and you're just like, gosh, I don't know how to show that I'm ready for this academically rigorous program, there's only so much you can do. And so that's what we really, really want to dig in and talk about today, and to just give you some hope that we have, you know, trophies on our walls at Grad Missions of clients who have come to us with imperfect applications and who have far exceeded every expectation.
For sure. I think one thing we should start with is just kind of explaining what each of these applicants are. So, Lysanne, can you tell us what a splitter is?
Yes. Can I be honest? I'm over the word splitter. We need a different word. Okay. Because it sounds so negative. I don't know. But a splitter
we would
is,
call them a disparate applicant on the law school side of the house. Like, I didn't learn splitter until we got out here in like student facing land.
Yes. Yes. So it's someone who has a GPA and LSAT that don't necessarily match. So you may have a really high GPA and a very low LSAT, or the opposite, where you have this super high LSAT score and a low GPA. And so it causes a challenge or presents a challenge when you're looking at your schools that you're interested in applying in or attending, and you may be well above their LSAT median, but then your GPA is completely, I mean, it's not even close to their median GPA. And so it's hard to gauge, you know, you can't put that in a perfect calculator online and it tell you your percentage of admission. And so a splitter is someone who has that the difference in the numbers.
Yeah. And it's hard to know what a safety school is. You know, we don't use
Yes.
we don't use the term safety school in the med school universe because there's no such thing. But there are definitely splitters in the MCAT universe. And that's when we, in the med school universe, and that's when we use things like the MSAR to sort of see where those scatter plots are. Like, have they ever in the history of ever admitted someone with a GPA, a BCPM, or an MCAT in your range? And if the answer is no, then it might not be worth the time and energy to apply. On the law school side of things, we do use the concept of a safety school because we can tell based on metrics and ABA data points that we have whether or not you would likely be admitted to that law school. But when you're a splitter or a super splitter, it's sort of hard to know, like, do I even have any safety schools?
For sure. And I think when it comes to safety schools, the mindset around safety schools is, well, I'll have that on my list and maybe come January, I'll apply if I haven't heard from my target or reach schools. Safety schools are very important. They're not just a last ditch effort, you know, you're catching the last train available to get to law school. especially if you're a splitter, you want to treat that safety school with top priority, applying early, submitting that GPA addendum if your GPA is really low, showing that you're very serious about applying and, attending that school, even if it's again, like splitter, safety is not a bad thing. It's not a bad school. It's just you have, higher median on in some of the points.
That's right.
So what can someone that is a splitter do? Say their GPA is on the lower side and their LSAT or MCAT is on the much higher side. What's something they can do? Do you recommend them take additional coursework? Do master's program? Do what is the best advice?
So this is where the advice really diverges. So for the med school population, yes, taking more bachelor's level classes, doing a post-bac, whether formal or one that you just sort of duct tape and baling wire together, your additional bachelor's level classes will boost your GPA. Um, master's level work will not. The only time a master's level, like a master's or a specialized master's, is helpful is if the institution where you're pursuing that master's has a guaranteed interview or a guaranteed spot in the med school class. Otherwise, master's work is nice to see, but it's not going to buoy your GPA or your BCPM GPA. On the law school side of the house, once your degree, your undergraduate degree is deferred, that is your cumulative GPA according to LSAC, the end. So even if you went and did post-bac work, you did master's work, it's not going to change your GPA one bit. It's locked in, the end.
Agreed. And that's a myth that we hear quite a bit. Is, well,
Yeah.
just go get your master's and that will bump your GPA. It will
Nope.
not bump your undergraduate GPA. It is what it is. Now, if you are really interested in that master's degree and have it, for other purposes other than being admitted to law school, that's fine. So I don't want you panic thinking, oh, I went and got my master's, like, and it's not gonna, it still shows, that you, especially if you did well in that master's, they're going to see those transcripts. But when it comes to submitting your GPA for their quota purposes, it's not going to count. And so my piece of advice would be obviously apply early. You can write a GPA addendum. We talk with clients a lot about GPA addendums and just people on our discovery calls about how to write that. It's not this 3-page essay on all of your hardships. It's
And
really
then my
taking,
dog died, and
right.
then this, and then I had a car wreck. Like, I
Yeah.
understand some of your lives are very tragic, but we've got to make it concise.
Yes.
And
And yeah,
yeah,
ownership. Take ownership
yes,
of it.
yes.
Not make excuses of, it was just a horrible time. And it may have been, and we're not trying to say it wasn't, but what admissions committees are looking for is that you recognize that the GPA is not where it needs to be and you're taking ownership of it, and you will do better in law school. You are more committed to your academics. Say you're a non-traditional student who's been out for 10 years. We obviously want your resume to be very strong to show, that is a stale GPA. It's not indicative of your work ethic and your performance in the classroom. So, um, but yeah, getting a master's is not it. You're going to waste time and money, especially if you don't plan to use that master's degree in some type of way, and it's not going to help your GPA.
On the GPA front, in med and in law, if you have a lower GPA, having really strong professor academic letters of recommendation for coursework where you did well, or for maybe hopefully that upward trajectory, like junior, senior year
Yeah.
when things improved, hearing from professors, boy, the like ace of spades of that letter is someone who maybe had you freshman, sophomore year and then saw a difference. And then once you figured out how to school, or you layered in accommodations, or you moved closer to campus so you weren't commuting an hour, like whatever
Yeah.
it was that fixed your problem, getting a letter of recommendation from a professor to the professors who are reviewing your application to say, like, hey, teacher to teacher, they figured it out. Like, I, yes, vouch for everything that they're saying in that GPA addendum. That's beautiful.
And we see that a lot too, right? Where freshmen, you just haven't figured it out yet and you don't know what you're doing. And, the studying that you did in high school doesn't transfer over, or you're struggling with homesickness, or you haven't found your community yet. And so a lot of times people will worry about, their GPA not being what it could be. And we say, just talk about it, be open and honest
Right.
about what you were struggling with, and the committees will look at your transcripts semester by semester, so
Yep.
they will see that upward trajectory. So if you are going into your senior year of undergraduate right now and you're thinking about law school, please don't be discouraged from applying if your freshman sophomore year didn't turn out how you wanted it to be. Really focus on the senior year, doing really well, building those relationships with your professors, starting on your application early, and it's nothing that's not repairable. So never want to discourage someone from pursuing it. Just know that your plan of attack, so to speak, is going to be a little different.
So we've talked a little bit to the applicant that has the lower GPA and the higher test score. What about the opposite applicant, the one who has a stellar GPA but didn't get their test scores where they want to be?
I'm going to be the voice of unpopularity here, and I'm going to say you need to wait until your test score is better.
And you may
You
need to
just
pursue
need,
accommodations.
you may need accommodations, you need a different approach, you need more time.
Yeah.
If you have a stellar GPA, you are capable of having a stellar test score. The
Yes.
end.
Agreed. And what I mean by accommodations is people always, we know when we bring up accommodations, people are like, oh, I, I couldn't do that. I'm not going to cheat. Um, Obviously, if your GPA is very, very high, you have, like Autumn was saying, you're able to achieve a high test score. There is something in the way here of keeping you from getting that test score that you're capable of. So maybe it's testing anxiety, some other,
Or you
there's
just
some type
haven't,
of roadblock.
there's
Yeah.
a roadblock, and sometimes a roadblock, honestly, I'm talking to you, med friends. It's you. You are the roadblock.
Mhm.
You have not given yourself adequate time to prepare for the MCAT. You have not taken biochemistry. You have not done the prep work in earnest that you need to do to prepare for the MCAT. We talked with Caitlin, who is working with us now as an advisor to our med clients, and she talked about her journey with the MCAT. If you are a med applicant and you haven't listened to that interview with Caitlin, go back last week and listen to that, or I think 2 weeks ago, because it is it is a feat for sure. And I realize not everyone can like quit their job for 6 months and study for the MCAT. Okay, then it might need to be a year of prep for you. Like it really may need to be. And applying with a 487 is not going to yield the same results, even if you have a 4.0. I don't know. What do you think, Logan?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I mean, if we're going to do this, let's do it. Right? Um, the other thing we talked about with Caitlin is this is the first of many standardized tests you're going to take on this journey in med school, out of med school. I mean, it's not like I just have to get through this and then I'm done. Like, this is the tip of the iceberg. So let's figure out what the barriers are so that then we can continue to address those barriers. If it's accommodations, then you need accommodations for the USMLE, which
That's right.
takes 1,500 years to pass through the system to get approved for those accommodations. And so you'll know when that time comes around, like, okay, I need a long runway to get
That's
this
right.
accomplished rather than letting it pop up on you for USMLE. Let's figure that out now so that we're prepared going on to the next phase. But the test score really unlocks the doors.
Mhm. Mhm. And you can't rush it. And there's no cheat code. There's not, I know there's some like cheating scandals going on in China, but like there is, you can't pass go, you can't collect $200. Like if your test score is the problem, my advice to you is to take a year and work on that test score.
A lot of schools also, a lot of secondaries are sent out automatically, but secondaries aren't sent out automatically if a lot of times you have a sub 500 for some schools. Like that is especially for MD programs. MD programs is really what I'm talking
It's a
about. If
cut
you're open
score.
to DO, great. But for MD programs, usually 500 is kind of the cutoff, and you won't receive a secondary from that if you have a sub 500.
That's right. That's right. And we aren't mad at you. We're just trying to tell you the truth that you're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of heartache, and you're also just not presenting the best that you can do. You know, on the MCAT, it's content that's going to follow you into med school. So if you have atrophy or deficiencies in that content material, it's going to continue to bite you the whole way through in med school, on your boards, in patient care. I mean, it's necessary. On the LSAT side of things, are you going to be asked questions about like Aztec pyramids in law school? No, but it's a test of your skill and your endurance of reading, parsing through dense information, coming to a conclusion in a speedy way. And that is law school. I mean, that is what you're going to have to do in law school. And so figuring out how to attack that kind of material and when the stakes are high, it is imperative for your success in law school. And we watch this over and over again. I can't tell you how many times we'll have clients who, you know, they finally get accommodations, they do well on the LSAT, they get in, and like, okay, I'm not going to use accommodations in law school. And we're like, okay, well, we'll talk to you here in 3 months when you change your mind,
Mhm.
because
For sure.
those skills that you're building to take and be successful on the LSAT are so crucial in law school too.
For sure. Because your only grade in law school is a really big test for every class that you take. It's a 3 to 4 hour test, sometimes even longer. And then we have a little something called the bar exam. And so
Yeah.
it just, I don't want to sound like that person was like, just you wait. But it's difficult. And if testing if you know, like I said, you've got that really great GPA and you do really well academically, but the test just is not there, then that's going to be a struggle on your law school exams and on the bar exam. And
Yeah,
we're telling you these things so that it will not be a struggle down the road.
that's right.
And I feel like a school is going to look at that as well because
Yes.
their rankings come
Yeah.
from their
Yeah.
bar results.
That's
And
right.
so
For
if
sure.
you struggle testing wise, then you're not going to be as admitted as quickly as someone else, no matter what your GPA
Yes.
is,
No,
because
you're a
you're at risk.
risky admit. Yeah, and which
We
is
overheard
why,
many of that. Yeah. Sorry.
yes, no, which is why low GPA, low MCAT, low LSAT, even just lower than what you wanted it to be, that means the earlier you have to apply, because we need to show that you are having your act together, and then take the test again, right? Like
Hmm.
med and law, take it again. There's another iteration that you can try again if you're just, bent on applying this cycle.
So I think we've covered everything for splitters. Now let's talk to our friends that are non-traditional students. Some of my favorite students that I ever worked with, and some of my favorite hires in the law firm were non-traditional students. And I think it's because they are ones that have already been out in the real world and they have experienced life. They've proven that they can be devoted to something, they've can be disciplined. And but a lot of times I think they come to the application process feeling a little less than.
Yeah,
So what do we advise for those students?
I think
Well, you're not less than. You're
you're
actually the
not less
best. So,
than. Yeah,
yeah.
not at all. I think owning it. We talk about this concept of a stale GPA, but a 4.0 that's 14 years old is a 4.0. Like it gets reported to US News, AMA,
Yeah.
and ABA the same. If it's lower GPA, I do think a non-traditional student has a stronger chance of being admitted because you have life experience, work experience, professional experience, research, different things like patient care that buoys for that GPA. And you're going to have letters of recommendation that come and talk about your work ethic and resilience and those kind of things since that undergraduate experience. No one, no one cares how old you are. Like you're the only one thinking about it, I promise.
For sure. And your colleagues are going to look up to you because
Mhm.
they know that you have sacrificed something to be there. You had a really great job that you left to pursue this new degree. You have a family, maybe, or a spouse, or other responsibilities, obligations, and you're choosing to go back to school. That says so much. And people, yeah, they may notice your age, but they notice it in a good way. Wow, that says a lot. What Autumn was saying, also Morgan too, about just that devotion and that responsibility.
I think it just proves that you want it. You want it more,
Mhm.
not that you want it more than some of the other students, but you, like you said, you have made a significant sacrifice to leave most likely a salary paying job
Yeah.
to pursue this goal and this dream of yours.
Yeah.
For
And in the
sure.
med school space, I feel like med schools sort of favor folks who've been out a little bit, who have had more experience with patients, more just life lived. You're going to understand the ethical spaces that you're entering. You understand the gravitas of the lives in your hands a little more. When you have some age on you, I think it's much riskier to be a K to MD than to be someone who was a nurse for 10 years and then you're going to med school. What do you think, Logan?
Totally agree. I think, like, from a student services perspective, what I love about non-traditional students is that they don't sweat the small stuff. They have already moved on to a point in life where their grades are not a reflection of their worth. They have already moved out into the world and found other things that they feel like are meaningful, and they have some North Star on what really matters, which I think for the mental health aspect of going through medical school is, I mean, that's the win. I do think you have to be a little bit prepared to come in and be med school mom or dad, because you're going to see some young people making poor decisions. Or you're going to hear about the poor decisions and you're going to think, oh no. And I think some non-traditional students feel the urge to insert themselves and be like, "Look, I don't know that that's a great idea." Or some just want to stay in their lane and be like, all right, I heard it, but I'm going to keep on going. I do think that is an element that you sometimes have to kind of grapple with, of being a little bit older, having a more fully developed frontal lobe, because let's not forget that if you come straight out of undergrad, you literally do not have a fully developed frontal lobe. So I think that's, something to consider there. But I think the mental health aspect of not measuring your success through grades and test scores is the real win for a non-traditional student, and something that they can hone in on in their application. That they have a broader meaning of life.
Yep. And you have more stories to draw from too. So like Logan and I keep talking about secondaries because we are in secondary season right now at Grad Missions. But you think about this sometimes, when we're working with a K to MD, there's a really limited set of stories that they've experienced, limited patient care, even if they have 2,000 hours versus someone who has, 15 years of experience and life to draw from. It's just a little bit different perspective altogether.
Mhm. I also just want to give a shout out to the moms that go to med school.
Yeah.
No one is doing it on a harder mode than a mom in med school. And I say
Amen.
that even knowing that, I knew couples in med school that had children.
Hmm.
No one was doing it on a harder mode than mom, because bath time comes around. Guess who's given the bath usually?
Yeah.
Mom's usually given the bath while dad is getting to study for the exam that they have tomorrow.
Hmm.
I think I knew several moms in our program, young moms to, having teenagers or grown children, and that perspective coming into medical school, not because you are going to then mother the program. That's not what I'm suggesting in any way, shape, or form, but your ability to balance all of the responsibilities
Yep.
and keep the end goal in mind, unparalleled.
Yeah. Agree completely.
I think sometimes the non-traditional students, it's a superpower that they don't know they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it helps them in the application process. They're someone who most people want to talk to.
Hmm.
They have a story. And so own it and be proud of it.
Yeah.
And don't be ashamed that you went and did something else and then now you're pursuing your goal. Be
That's right.
proud.
That's right.
Well, I think we've covered everything
Covered.
today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we really just wanted to take a little pause today and talk to the folks who maybe have felt a little impostery based on our previous episodes because we definitely, part of the reason that we all work at Grad Missions is because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so our goal in this podcast, in our work with clients, and our work with in our workshops and all of those things that we do is just to get the best information out there so that you can have a strong roadmap. And so obviously, like the guidance that we give is going to be optimized, right? Like this is how to do it in the best way possible. But there are paths to law school and med school for just about anybody on the planet. And if you're wondering if there is a path for you to law or med school, you should book a free 20-minute strategy call with me. We will ask you a few questions so I can get to know you. And then we will just spend 20 minutes on Zoom talking through your unique situation, your unique glide path. We'll talk through how you can angle your personal statement, how you can anchor your supplemental writing. We can even talk about strategic school list that you may want to consider. So it's not scary. It's totally free, 20 minutes with me, and then become a Grad Missions client and you get the wealth of every voice you hear on this podcast, plus more, building you a successful application and admissions process. All right. Thanks for joining, y'all. We'll talk again next week. Bye.
Thank you.